Hello and welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL. Today you can see we have my graph paper out and we're going to try to work on a pattern here. So you can see it kind of started with some reds and stuff, and you can see that it is going to be 3 times the width of the bracelets I was working on earlier. So, well, I guess I did 2 that I joined, so this is going to be 3. All right, so the idea here is I want to take patterns that were easy. Let's shift this over. Let's start at the middle. Patterns that were easy and make them more complex. So my computer's going to kind of struggle a little bit here, I think, because I'm recording the video of this. I'm painting and it's recording the sound, so that little bucket fill thing is probably going to happen a lot here. I guess have to learn to cope with it. The circles off to the side, what that is I've kind of predetermined what colors I was going to use, and I find that that's just an easier way of kind of being able to go over, draw the color from it, and kind of run with it. Now, mind you, I would have probably used these same rainbow colors even if I was going to do something in a grayscale. And the reason for that is it's really a whole lot easier to know where you are like midway through something, especially if you have patterns that are changing up a lot. So you know that the pattern repeats again when you get back to wherever it started. I just choose red because, well, I like red. So, all right, so there it is. We went through 1. Now the pattern I was thinking of doing was the one where it sort of has like that sort of zipper thing down the middle. So that's kind of more like these ones come through, right? So let's just kind of color this in. I'm trying to hurry because I don't want this video to go on forever, and I wanted to actually kind of tie up the knots for this. Oh, shoot. That's what Control Z is for, backs you up a bit. All right. So next is the yellow, goes this way. The green goes this way. Maybe I'll do all the rest of the filling in bits afterwards. That makes a bit of sense, I guess. But you can kind of see now how it makes that sort of a interesting difference in the center, right? Kind of like how we did the stripe thing, just a little bit different. So, and mind you, again, I will put the links in the description. The other side, what I was planning on doing is more where it does the whole switchy thing. I forgot what the title of that was. I'll just put that in text later. So there you go. So that one's more like this. Now, the thing here is what I want to do with this is I want to reverse this whole thing when I get to the middle. And if I do that, that one that did the reverse, if I'm going to do that off onto the side here, I think it would be kind of maybe better if I do the reverse instead of from, like the wide side here is on the left. If instead of changing that, maybe I just make it kind of bounce back, so that way the thicker part's facing inwards. Now, mind you, we're going to go for some kind of a symmetry here. We're going to put the same thing happening on this part over here. Now what you might have noticed, whoops, why did I do the yellow here? What you might notice is I've left off this little row, and that's only because I just kind of wanted to talk about it a bit. The thing about that row is that's the joining rows. So if you were doing these bracelets individually, right, they would only go this far. and this blue row wouldn't exist at all. Now, because we're using the same colors and because these patterns kind of line up, we will be able to easily join them. And of course you would have to, because if it's ever the same color on both parts here, then this has to be red, right? If it's red here, this has to be red. And then both of these have to be red. This is orange and this is orange. This has to be orange. So just kind of wanted to show that in this instance, this is how it would work. If you're designing this, perhaps you might end up with a case where maybe this here's doing a completely separate sort of pattern, and then you'd have to decide, just like we did with the red and blue one, you would have to decide whether or not you were going to make the middle wider by letting it come out and bounce back, or if you wanted to make the outside bits wider by making them the ones that come to this row and bounce back. So I think there is kind of something to be learned there in how, when you're, if I guess what I really want to do in this one is I'm going to show you 3 easy bracelets when joined together is going to make this great big bracelet that's going to look really crazy complicated. And I think if you can kind of grasp how that's done, I think when you design a bracelet, you'll be able to be like, oh, take the parts of the things that you like making and turn it into something, just really eye-catching, really, monstrous in size and design, but that you find that it was really, really easy to put together. I mean, these particular bracelets, I would say, are certainly easy skills. And I don't think that just because we're putting them together and making, because this is going to be what, 36 strings, right? That sounds incredibly daunting to a beginner. I know, when I was starting, that would have been like unthinkable. But when you break it down and you kind of look at what that 36 strings really is and how each segment is just a design that isn't really all that hard, then you might kind of get the idea, hey, I could do that. And that's kind of the point. This is what I'm kind of hoping for in this video, is to show how you can kind of recycle your designs and make them more intense by putting them together. And this is basically a triple wide, right? I mean, we're not doing anything too crazy except for just joining it up and making it much wider. So I think, I'm not sure, when I do it, this thing doubled up, I'm thinking it's going to be about just a couple inches wide, I guess. I'm not sure. I'll get that after I finish it. So, so let's see. If this is 6 colors for there, another 6 colors. Yeah, I'm trying to decide how far down my center is. So let's kind of work towards that, and the rest of this should be a little bit easier to figure out. So that's 2. I think I can get 3 of these in before I have to change, so. Kind of. I'm really undecided here as far as whether or not I should do this as one video and then the actual making of it in a second video. And I guess what's really going to determine that is how long does it take for me to make this? And at the moment, it feels like it's taking forever. So it's a bit of a concentration and a bit of trying to make sure I don't screw it up, because that's really easy, especially when you're talking. All right. So now I know where the middle is. And you can see I made it so that way, instead of just being that V shape, it kind of goes both directions. So now I can continue with this. So you can see here that you have the green passes straight through, right? So even though we don't have the finer details all colored in here, it should be kind of relatively obvious where the string is traveling and how that works. Mind you, I'll put the pattern up. It'll be available. Of course, the question is, should I fill it all in? That's so much more work. Most of the time, especially if I'm dealing with patterns that are easy like this, I wouldn't fill it all in. My biggest concern would be getting the colors figured out for the very start of the bracelet, because that's where it really basically matters the most, is when you're trying to make it like because if the strings don't start right, you can't actually do the project right. So let's see, hang on. So sorry, I got a little distracted from myself. This is pretty sure that's where it comes back. Yes, that does. And then the purple here. Okay. So what we've done is this string here is going to actually take the turn. Whoops. Here we go. And we'll come back this way. And then, of course, this one is going to come back. And that's how we're going to actually form our center of this one, is that we're basically just going to rechange the direction, and then it's just going to follow everything it did at the top. So what I was saying is, when it comes to the tops up here, right, as long as you know the sequence and then you know what your pattern is, you probably aren't keeping track of everything that's happening underneath, right? So there's no point in having to fill things in for yourself in particularly. I suspect I will have to do it for you guys, just out of courtesy for anybody who might not understand the whole process, or, you know, I don't know. Maybe you guys could leave me a comment. Tell me, you know, how far in detail I should do these things. Am I just being lazy? It's, you can be brutally blunt if you think that not wanting to color it in is just pure laziness. Let me know. I can accept it. Is that right? Yes. Yeah, I'm really excited about this bracelet. I kind of want to stop drawing it and actually get to making it. Okay, so a little trick here. Let's save ourselves some time. This row over here is as far as that'll go, and this is as far as this one should go. So by putting in these little markers that show where it is, we'll just make it that much easier for me to not actually overdo it as I'm filling in these rows. All right. So this is how I've been spending my quarantine, is working hard, creating lots of different things. I don't necessarily spend a lot of time drawing up patterns. I kind of mostly do it in my head, but that comes from experience. And I'm kind of doing this more about showing you how, if you have an idea in mind, how you can actually accomplish that idea without driving yourself insane or having too many throwaway test projects that don't turn out. Because let's face it, like, in my early times, when I was trying to, like in the early 90s, when I wanted to do the pattern where it looked like chain links, that all had to be done on paper because I couldn't quite figure out how I was going to create that kind of an imagery otherwise. And mind you, then I didn't have graph paper like this. I didn't have a computer. So I was doing it on paper, and one little mistake, and you might be scrapping the whole thing, which I tell you what is a great motivation to really be super careful, because oh my God, it was stressful. Yeah. Might be also possibly why I can do as much in my head, was I had to really think good and hard whether or not I was coloring in a square, because I didn't want to have to start over again. So maybe there's something to be said for that. So what I did here is, knowing that basically everything here was going in an upwards V shape, you know, up until the centering point, I knew that this line coming across here horizontally, this is the beginning of where the whole effect is for, you know, changing its direction, right? That little added thing that we're doing to it. So once I got to here, I knew that that green that was going to carry on through, this green is going to carry on through. So it was pretty obvious. You can see the colors on this side. This is going to do the same thing. A little bit more challenging as we get a little further down here. Figure it out as I'm coming along. Blue, purple, red. Well, we know that this is the center one, right? So and that's going to come right there, yeah. And then come back, whoops, come back this way. Yeah. So it turns out this isn't all that difficult at all. Hopefully you guys are following along with what I'm doing, that I'm not going kind of too fast or too crazy for you. See this blue here? This one is going to be traveling through. It's going to come here. It's going to, this one, obviously, you can see that the yellow has already made its path. So the blue has to come back this way. It's, it might be a little bit easier for me. Like, and again, if you're struggling with this, if you're like undecided where everything is going or how that's working, you can take and, like, you know, in this case, you'd know that this is blue and blue, right? So there was blue and blue came from here and here. That means this blue is coming outwards. Now, this is obviously, this red is coming this way. So this blue obviously comes straight through. This orange is coming down. The blue is coming straight through again. Unless there's one of these, the other colors is doing a kind of like a zigzag motion, then the string is traveling straight across. And you can see how it links up. So that's sort of important. Like if you're, when you're trying to design it, remembering, whoops, yeah, that is right. Remembering how that works, that's going to help you a lot. Kind of lay out kind of what you want it to do, and then figure out whether or not that's possible. Now, the other side is just going to mirror this side. I'll go ahead and fill that in and get that all sorted. What's the next part of this is when we're going to make the loops to this, I don't necessarily want it to have 3 loops. So what can we do about that? Well, whoops. We can make it 2 loops. We'll make the I'm going to use a kumi, of course. I'm going to make the kumi go from this point to this point. Now, I was showing you before on the pink and gray one, as well as the 3-color, the green, lavender, blue one, how we could use one loop to cover it. But those were both like really symmetrical, like both sides were the same. In this case, if we were to basically not use any of this right here and just eliminate this whole group, right? We can then make this whole long area the start. So that means we'll have the yellow here, the green. So that's 12 strings coming down on this side and only 6 on this side. And believe it or not, that's going to work out tremendously. So that one's purple. Yep. This will be a red, orange. This will be a yellow. And Control Z. We can basically eliminate all that. Let me see if I can do that. Kind of sloppy. I'll clean that up for the printed copy that I make later, but kind of give you an idea how this thing will actually take shape. So, all right. Well, I think we're like 20 some odd minutes in. So I think what I'm going to do is I think this will be one video, and I will release the second part of this video probably the same day, just to make it easy so you can go from one to the other. All right. So until next time, don't get your strings in a bunch.